In your essay, it is recommended that apart from at least 2 arguments, you provide 2 other counter-arguments, and these are the major counter-arguments of your essay. Sometimes it is difficult to come up with counter-arguments. For certain types of questions that have a very binary character, just draw a line and list your arguments for and against your stand. An example of such a question is like, how much do you agree that education kills curiosity? Then you just divide the page into points that support the statement and those that don't. For other types of question, it is not that clear. Here's an example. Advertisements are merely a reflection of society's ideals. Initially, one could see this in 3 different ways. Yes, advertisements are reflections of society's ideals. No, they are not accurate portrayals of society's values. But in fact, advertisements don't reflect society's present ideals, but shape its future ideals. Yet quite obviously the last 2 points have something in common and are different from the first. So perhaps at first glance you see multiple ways of looking at the question, but you can easily collapse them into those that support your stand and those that don't, and you can hence easily identify your counter-arguments. Once you've identified and written your counter-argument, don't stop there. If not, it might overshadow your own points and weaken your own argument instead. Counter your counter. There are a number of ways that you could do that. First, when appropriate, mention your counter is an isolated case and is not representative of the main story. Second, the counter-argument is valid in certain situations, but not in those that you are discussing. There are many more ways to do so, and it depends on each essay, so I leave you to figure this out as you practice. If you ever see yourself completely trashing your counter-argument at this step, don't use that counter-argument because it's likely to be a weak counter-argument that you should remove. Think of a stronger counter. Sometimes it is also tempting to come up with weak counter-arguments that you can easily shoot down, but don't. Suppose I want to convince you that economic development at the expense of environment is justified. I write that some people say that this is not true because the deforestation for agricultural development has caused many birds to lose their breeding habitat, and this is not justified because birds are part of nature. Then I say that this counter-argument is not valid because this is appealing to the assumed superiority of nature, a logical fallacy. See what I just did there? I chose a very weak counter-argument and attacked it easily. But it doesn't do anything to successfully convince the reader that I've considered other perspectives thoroughly because this is not a substantial enough counter-argument. Instead, make sure that your counter-arguments are major enough and worth discussing.